Today, in this video, we will be discussing two common claims related to psychology and determine if they are myths. The first myth we will be discussing is some people are visual in their learning while some people are verbal. Learning styles are something that people have pondered about for a long time, but its popularity grew in the early 90s, around the time when Neil Fleming, a school inspector, wondered why are some teachers more successful at reaching their students. He came up with the VARK questionnaire to determine people's learning styles. Though he played a big part, there were also other factors at play. It is largely suspected that the concept had successfully spread in the 80s and 90s, mainly due to the self-esteem movement at the time that emphasized the idea that everybody is special, so they believed that everyone has their own individual learning style as well. But what does it even mean to have a learning style? Visual learners are often described as being able to remember things better from seeing images, colors, or even taking notes by drawing diagrams, while verbal learners are often described as being able to remember information more easily when they're presented as sounds spoken out loud by others, or when they talk about or vocally repeat what they are learning.
Many would think that they performed better on tests using specific study methods like visual examples or verbal text. However, one study has a different result. In this study done in 2011, there were 48 students from psychology or educational sciences that participated in total. Then that group got split in half. Two versions of the same test was given out to two groups of students. One version had verbal instructions with text and arithmetic, and the other had visual instructions with a tree diagram and arithmetic. I included the two images taken from the experiment of the two modes of instruction. The participants in the verbal instruction group outperformed those that were in the visual instruction group. Then a swap happened, where those that did do well with visual instruction performed the same in a post-test in the opposite instruction mode. In the conclusion, the study explained how some students might think that they will do better in one mode instruction, when in reality, they do better in the opposite. Therefore, there is no large difference in visual and verbal learning. In another study done in 2018, there were 426 anatomy students that completed a study strategy survey and an online VARK questionnaire. To reiterate, VARK stands for visual, auditory, read/write, and kinesthetic, which are different types of learning. Once all the students completed the survey and the VARK questionnaire, it was seen that students did not study in the way that reflected their learning style that was given to them through the VARK questionnaire, and that when the students did change their study habit to one that was given to them, there was no large difference between the students' test scores. The correlation between the students' study strategies and the VARK questionnaire was not inherent. It was also seen that the students' specific study strategy gave them a better grade compared to the ones that they received from the VARK questionnaire. Therefore, it's not true that some students are visual in their learning, while some are verbal learners.
In conclusion, for the claim that some people are visual in their learning while some are verbal, people tend to believe that pictures, diagrams, and demonstrations help visual learners recall information better, whereas both written and spoken explanations help verbal learners more. When knowledge is given visually as well as verbally, everyone learns more. However, the VARK model was employed in a study to test this, and it turned out that students not only study in ways that appear to reflect their learning style, but those who did customize their studying to suit their style did not perform any better on their exams. The researcher concluded that students had developed study habits that were difficult to disrupt once established. Students appeared to be interested in their learning styles, but not enough to alter their study habits as a result. Thus, this claim is busted.
Moving on, the next claim we decided on was a statement boys and girls have no inherent difference in toy preference, concluding that gender roles are enforced by society rather than being a natural instinct. According to the social learning theory, children identify and endorse gender roles through the years of being rewarded for their gender-related correlated behavior or because they observe such behaviors from their surroundings. Gender roles are roles each gender should supposedly follow, involving how each gender should speak, act, dress, behave, and what they should be interested in and shouldn't be interested in. Typically, girl toys are dolls, a kitchen set, ponies, teapots, etc., while boy toys include cars, Legos, tools, and so on, making it clear that society is assuming that children will choose a toy that correlates to their gender.
There have been many debates related to the topic of gender. Typically, this theory is theorized to be ingrained into the respective genders throughout childhood with gender's typical items. However, there is also the debate of whether or not these preferences and roles are inherent. Many studies have been highlighted to research this through the theory that boys and girls have no inherent differences in toy preferences. One study conducted in 2017 was predominantly related towards the topic of whether polycystic ovarian syndrome and its heightened testosterone levels in women would transfer through pregnancy to the female fetus. From this, there lies the question of whether gender-respective hormone levels are the influence of gender-typical or gender-atypical toy preferences. Does increased estrogen yield a high preference towards girl-designated toy preferences? And likewise, does testosterone determine boy-designated preferences? Through the process of the topic study, it was found that the majority of gender preferred their respective gender-designated toy groups over the others. There were outliers within the finding, however, and though this was not found to be the norm, it was also discussed that it should not be prevented. In another study conducted in 2016, the theory proved the same. In this study, they focused on how the children acted when placed in pure environments, with little outside instruction or coaxing from parents or carers. The study group was aged 9 to 32 months and revealed that without any other outside pressure, generally boys were found to pick boy-typical or gender-typical toys, with the same being for girls, respectively. And like the previous study, there were some outliers to the toy preferences. As well, the study found that though the children were young, being aged 9 to 32 months, they are not so young as to have completely eliminated cultural or societal normatives. Therefore, the study proved that at a very young age, children still have differing preferences to their respective gender-typed majorities. However, this is a little inconclusive without completely negating outside influences prior to study testing.
To summarize, for the claim that boys and girls have no inherent differences in toy preferences, multiple studies appear to support the notion that boys and girls display gender-type choices even before the kids are old enough to understand gender, and even when their parents are not present who may otherwise influence them to play in a gender stereotypical manner. Children as young as 9 months old prefer to play with gender-specific type toys, according to a recent study. The findings suggest that when picking gender-type toys, both boys and girls may follow different developmental paths. Sex differences and object preferences may have biological, as well as developmental and environmental components. Therefore, this claim is busted. And that concludes our common psychology claims busted or not busted video. Thank you for watching. On the next couple slides, we have our references.